Archaeological discoveries happen all the time, some that are so amazing and cool that I can't wait to see what else is out there. Like, have you seen this painting? The famous artist Vincent van Gogh, who has been known to paint such unique styles that implemented the light and life that surrounded him, as well as the beauty that inspired him. From endless swirls of stars, wind-swept fields of hay and florals like sunflowers coated in vibrant hues, peers out in this hidden portrait one of many that he had painted, of himself, which apparently the revealed artwork is believed to have been unknown until now. As of 2022, researchers discovered under this painting of his 1885 work of the head of a peasant woman lies a self-portrait of the artist. In total, Vincent has painted over 35 self-portraits throughout his life. From the age of 19 till the age of 25, he would save money and sometimes paint self-portraits on the back of other paintings, which is probably what happened with this one. By doing so, he avoided the costs of not just a model, but also how expensive canvases as well as paints are all the time. I mean, they still are. My god, they're so expensive. He always seemed to paint himself with a serious and stoic face, but at the same time, researchers and art historians note that when it came to Vincent, he was mentally and physically exhausted all the time. That I can relate to. As for this painting, he seems to be wearing a straw hat, which he does eventually paint again in an 1887 painting of himself with the same hat. Either way, when it comes to artistic paintings and historical analysis of them, there's a story to everything a person makes. As well as like this gold mask that dates back over 3,000 years among hundreds of relics, the golden mask of Sangsikdui was discovered alongside its other companions by a farmer in 1920. Weighing up to 100 grams, it was likely that this archaeological find would have been part of a larger bronze head than a singular object. It dates back to the Shang dynasty, which came to an end in 1046 BC. Alongside the golden mask uncovers up to 500 items including ivory relics, a jade knife, a ceremonial vessel, and other bronze figurines. As more excavations were made, they uncovered more relics, over 1,000 pieces and items were found, as well as another golden mask. Unsure if it was a separate piece of the other mask, but together marks a clear indication that they were from the same era and same material. Even the craftsmanship of the design, although different, has a similar intended markings and curvature of each crinkle within the metal. In total, since 1920, over 50,000 ancient artifacts have came to light, and although the Sangsikdui civilization is long gone, the people and life of this era marks an outstanding representation of the Bronze Era and civilization of China, East Asia, and even the world. Cave of Altamira is also known as the home of the prehistoric cave art located near the historic town of Santilla Ana del Mar in Cantabria, Spain. Featuring a charcoal drawing and paintings of contemporary local fauna and human hands, the earliest paintings were applied during the Upper Paleolithic around 36,000 years ago. The site was discovered in 1868 by Modesto Cubillas alongside the striking quality of its polychromatic art. Altamira's fame stems from the fact that the paintings were the first European cave paintings for which a prehistoric origin was suggesting and promoting that Sautuola, who studied the cave relentlessly, published in his research with the support of others like Juan de Villanova y Piera in 1880 to initially public acclaim, but the public opinion of the research led to bitter public controversy among experts who researched the prehistoric origins of the paintings on the ground that prehistoric humans must have had lacked the sufficient abilities for abstract thought. But turns out, as more prehistoric caves filled with similar paintings and designs around Franco-Cantabrian region debunked the controversies, proving in human immigration, integration, constant moving and settling placed these human artists in motion everywhere. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered by a group of Bedouin teenagers tending to their sheep in 1946 in Palestine. Qumran, also known as the West Bank, one of the Palestinians named as Mohammed Al-Thib, were walking around the Dead Sea tossing rocks when one of the rocks knocked the opening off a cliffside, revealing a cave filled with jars. These large clay jars contained leather and papyrus scrolls, and antiquities dealers bought the cash, which basically ultimately ended up in the hands of various scholars who estimated that the texts were upward of to 2,000 years old. After word of the discovery got out, Bedouin treasure hunters and archaeologists unearthed tens of thousands of additional scroll fragments from 10 nearby caves, and in total making up between 800 to 900 manuscripts. The origins of the texts include mixes of languages including Hebrew, Aramaic, as well as an ancient Paleo-Hebrew alphabet that thought to have fallen out of use in the 5th century BC. In addition, several texts featuring translations of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, which Jews used instead of the additional of Hebrew at the time of the scroll's creation. One fascinating thing about the manuscripts of Qumran is a copper scroll consisting of 2 rolls of copper, which was found in cave number 3. The scrolls consisted of copies of biblical and apocryphal literature, the writings of the sect, including the commentaries, the rule of the community, the scroll of the war of the sons of light against the sons of darkness, and the Damascus document. The Dead Sea Scrolls constitute one of the major archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. They incorporate the earliest known manuscript of the Bible, as well as other important historical documents describing describing the life of the Essene community. At the same time, they are also the main source for the study of the history of Palestine, as the Dead Sea Scrolls have shed a light on Judaism and the root of Christianity on the shore of the Dead Sea. The Aztec calendar stone is another historical and important archaeological find that holds a lot of significance to the ancient civilizations. Like the Aztec people, the stone is not therefore in any sense a functioning calendar, but rather an elaborately carved solar disc which, for the Aztecs and other Mesoamerican cultures, represented rulership. The stone was discovered in December 1790 CE in the Central Plaza of Mexico City and now resides in the National Museum of Anthropology in that city. The stone would originally have been laid flat on the ground and possibly anointed with blood sacrifices. When it was discovered, the stone was laying flat and upside down, perhaps in an attempt to prevent the final cataclysm, the fall of the fifth and final sun. As the Aztec world fell apart following the attack from the old world, on either side of the central face are two jaguar heads or paws, each clutching a heart representing the terrestrial realm. Then there is a decorative ring surrounded by another ring depicting symbols which represents turquoise and jade, symbols of the equinox and solstice and the colors of the heavens, as the two heads of the bottom center represents fire serpents and their bodies run around the perimeter of the stone with each ending in a tail. The four cardinal and intercardinal directions are also indications with larger and lesser points respectively. But when it comes to ancient times, especially with ancient Mesoamerican cultures, there was always a murmur of the brutality of human sacrifices when in fact maybe it wasn't as frequent as people think. But hey, what do you think? Inside a medieval burial mound at Sutton Hoo lies the Anglo-Saxon ship burial. Amateur archaeologist Basil Brown famously made the discovery of a lifetime back in 1939 when he brushed away the Suffolk soil and revealed the richest intact early medieval grave in Europe. As Basil and a team of archaeologists dug deeper, they unearthed the fine feasting vessels, deluxe hanging bowls, silverware from distant Byzantine luxury textiles, gold dress accessories set with Sri Lankan garnets, and with the iconic helmet with human mask. Sue Brunning, a curator of early medieval European collections, say that the burial was the final resting place of someone who had died in the earliest 7th century, during the Anglo-Saxon period, a time before England actually existed. She highlights the effort of manpower that would have taken necessary to position and bury the ship, as it would have involved a lot of dragging the ship uphill from the River Devon, digging a large trench, cutting trees to craft the chamber, dressing it with finery, and finally raising the mound. Unfortunately, we'll never know the true identity of the grave's inhabitant. When it was unearthed in 1939, any bodily remains were actually claimed by the acidic soil to leave only a human-shaped gap among the treasures within. Despite the lack of human remains, it's still pretty possible to glean personal information about that inhabitant. And speaking of mechanisms and intriguing pieces, the Antikythera Mechanism is an ancient Greek hand-powered orrery or model of the solar system, described as one of the oldest examples of an analog computer. I don't think you could play Minecraft on this computer though, but apparently according to researchers, you could use this to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. It could also be used to track the 4-year cycle of athletic games similar to the Olympiad, the cycle of the ancient of the current Olympic Games. Its construction relied on theories of astronomical and mathematics developed by Greek astronomers during the 2nd century BC, and it is estimated to have been built in the late 2nd century BC or the earliest 1st century BC. Although researchers analyzed this intricate relic, the evidence that the Antikythera Mechanism was not unique adds support to the idea that there was also an ancient Greek tradition of complex mechanisms technology that was used later, at least in the part transmitted to the Byzantine and Islamic world, where apparently mechanical devices were pretty complex, but they still existed back then, and they were also built during the Middle Ages. In the ancient Islamic world, Banu Musa's Kitab al-Hiyal, or the Book of Indigenous Devices, was commissioned by the Caliph of Baghdad in the early 9th century AD. This text describes over 100 mechanical devices, some of which may date back to ancient Greek texts preserved in monasteries. A geared calendar similar to the Byzantine device was described by the scientist al-Biruni around 1000, and a surviving 13th century astrolabe also containing a similar clockwork device. It is possible that this medieval technology may have been transmitted to Europe and contributed to the development of mechanical clocks there. Even in the 11th century in China, Su Song constructed a mechanical clock tower, as well as pointing positions of some stars and planets which were shown on a very similar mechanical rotated sphere. The Rosetta Stone was also one of the many archaeological discoveries that surprised many around the world. The stone have even helped aid translators as it played a crucial role in deciphering ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Discovered by a French soldier named Pierre-François Bouchard in July 1799 during a French campaign in Egypt, located the stone in modern-day Rashid in Nile Delta, also known back then as Rosetta. The Rosetta Stone contained inscriptions in 3 scripts: Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphics, and a script known as Demotic. The Rosetta Stone remains one of the most visited and well-known artifacts in the British Museum, attracting millions of visitors each year. But many Egyptians want their artifacts back, as as most, if not majority of the pieces stored in museums like the one in the British museums were stolen from their land, and as tourist extractions, then allowing Egyptians to probably decide what to do with their stuff because it's from their ancestors, you know? A wedding ring, which holds a lot of significance in many cultures in today's modern age, was also discovered by a man by the English countryside as he was trying his hand at becoming a metal detectorist, where he stumbled upon a gold and diamond medieval wedding ring on his second attempt. David Board's astonishing find, which was believed to be a scrap of metal, told the news outlets, which was back in 2019 but came to public attention, that this was the sale at Noonan's. The piece of the jewelry features two entwined bands to symbolize marriage and the union, and an introverted diamond. Inside the band is a medieval French inscription that reads Leo vos tien vos tenez le moi, which translates to I hold your faith, hold mine, according to the auction house. The ring sold up to £38,000, which apparently is $46,000, on November 29th, and maybe people might find more things as they start looking, but with some discoveries you might not have to dig so much. As an example, when it came to the Moai statues, known as the Eastern Island heads, are pretty iconic. The purpose of the Moai statues is to believe to be both religious and cultural, as they likely represent ancestors, chiefs, or other important figures in the Rapa Nui society. In some point, the Rapa Nui history, there was a decline in statue productions, and many Moai has toppled from their platforms, possibly due to internal conflicts or environmental challenges. Efforts have been made to preserve and restore the Moai statues in Easter Island, as European contact in the 18th century and later events, including the transportations of some statues to other countries, further contributed to the decline of the Moai culture. Some statues have been re-erected on their original Ahu platforms, which providing insight to the island's cultural heritage, all of which place a significance in discovery within their history. And of course, speaking of history, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe. My name is Jess, and I wish you all the best. Bye!